I'm Luz Reyes Martin, for those of you that don't know who I am. I am the Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications and part of the planning team for this project. Just an overview of what we'll be doing today for the next hour. Pete has a presentation that he'll go through, and he'll do the big reveal of the design concept that we are moving forward with for the website. This is an opportunity to get your feedback. We'll have lots of opportunity after this to get input from stakeholders that will help inform our work as we finalize and get ready for a launch, which will probably be sometime in the late spring or summer. That'll start to get refined over the next several weeks and months. We will have Q&A when Pete has concluded his presentation. And for those of you that are here, I will ask that you please come up to the microphone up here to my left so that we can capture your question on the audio recording. So with that, I will turn it over to Pete. And thank you so much for coming and for your time.
Thanks, Luz. Question for you. Do you actually have the handouts? Yes. Maybe we could pass those around. So I just have feedback sheets for everybody. If you guys could, we can pass around a pen if we need to. But if we could fill those out before you guys leave, I'd really appreciate that. Hey, everybody. I'm kind of bummed that I flew all the way from Boston, and this is the weather that you people greet me with. Wow, bringing it down. Somebody said I brought it with me. That was mean. That hurt. So thanks for having me back again. I know some of you. There are a number of familiar faces from when we did the discovery sessions, and a bunch of new people. So hey to you guys, and hey guys out there in TV land. So we want to spend a little bit of time going over some background of how we got to this place, and looking at some design stuff as well. So I've got an agenda just to keep the conversation focused, but I want this to be more of a conversation with people in the room. So, you know, if I'm going too fast or if you have a question or anything, just throw up your hand, and then I'll ask you to just come down to the mic so we can make sure that the people in TV land can hear you. So just a agenda for today, a quick refresher, again, a little bit of a progress report on where we are now, a quick look at some of the designs, time for questions, and then next steps so you guys kind of know what's coming after this. So just a quick refresher, this is just who iFactory is. I didn't want to go into a lot of detail, but basically we've been around since 1992. Most of that time we've been in the higher ed, healthcare, and nonprofit space. So we're national now. We've done everything. This is only the last few years of our clients, but we do everything from community colleges through, you know, the schools, medical schools, law schools, everything, and even some secondary education. So we've been in the education space for a long time. I've been doing this for been in the education space for maybe the last 10, 12 years, somewhere in there, and then at iFactory for the last 8. So nothing you could ask is going to throw me. I've been to the rodeo. So why are we doing this, or why have we spent the last year doing this? So a couple of things. We know from sort of big annual surveys done by groups like Noel Levitz that websites are really influential. They're probably the most influential source of decision-making in terms of perspectives in their families, where to go to school. The current website that you guys have now, I think it's pretty obvious. It's really tactical. It's like a billboard of all kinds of stuff. There's not really a strategy behind the content. And it doesn't really tell a good story of this place as a place that people can get to know before they even come here, as well as its mission and what makes this place great and unique. It's not responsively designed, so it's not good on a mobile phone. Not consistently good, I should say. And it's not really adequately accessible, so there are a number of things that the new design will do that will help improve 508 ADA compliance in particular. And that's been a big issue for our clients. We've had a number of clients actually have Department of Justice filings against them for not having their websites accessible enough. So I think this is really good timing that we're doing this, and that's something that we'll need to address going forward as well. The market's getting more and more competitive. I think you guys are experiencing that here, especially since you have such a great public education system here. It is really competitive. As well as for the people in the room, you know, anybody who's trying to work with content right now, and God love you, Jen, you're a really good sport. But right now, the content management it's inflexible. The model is difficult. It requires a lot of centralized help. It requires a lot of training. It's heavy on the maintenance and heavy on the effort, and it's not really as flexible as we'd like it to be. So I think the upgrade of the CMS, I think, is actually going to make a big difference. All right. So the goal is in part here to update the website, but it's also in part to make things easier for all of you folks in terms of managing the content. So just some specific objectives. So when we're looking at the design, we remember what we had intended to do as a result of having done all the discovery, talked to lots of people, sent out a survey, looked at the analytics, et cetera, and then came up with a strategy. So based on the RFP and the strategy, here are the things that we really want to set out to do. So make sure the public site is focused on prospective students and their families, so external audiences. I'm using prospective students and their families as the primary, not the only audience, right? I think we're trying to provide an interim solution. We're looking at the long term, and we're hoping that there'll be, a true intranet for internal audiences. But in the meantime, what we'd like to do is make sure that we segment content for internal audiences so the content on the website doesn't get muddy. Websites, and I've been doing this for a long time, websites that are for mixed audiences, the content gets very muddy. Internal audiences tend to write for themselves, and so for somebody who's on the outside, they see a lot of acronyms, they see a lot of things organized by department or by program, when those aren't necessarily intuitive to somebody who doesn't actually work here or already go to school here. We want to prioritize excellent service. This is in good part funded by student services. So we want to make sure that focus on service is at the top of our list here. The navigation, make sure it's intuitive. And a bunch of people are talking about navigation issues before. Navigation that's intuitive to a person who is on the outside, not to a person on the inside, right? People who don't know this place. We don't want to use things like acronyms because people outside here won't understand what that means, right? So we want to use plain language terms as much as possible. Mobile responsiveness, accessibility, we talked about those things already. We want to make sure to have a gateway to the foundation, you know? What we don't want to do is have people want to come here and give us money and make that difficult. That's just not good. That's not a good thing. Prioritize content to ensure the greatest impact, positive impact on enrollment in particular, with the least effort, right? That just, I think, makes sense. Make it as easy as possible for our external audiences, but also for the people in this room and the people working with content in TV land. Establish governance, so some rules of the road so that people understand how this thing works. You're not trying to guess about what kind of content goes on the public site and what kind of content should go on this intranet that we're going to have at some point. Right? We want people to know what the rules of the road are. How can I get training? What kind of content is good? What are some examples of good photos? What are some examples of good content writing for the web, right? So that people understand that stuff. And again, to help you guys, to kind of help you with content and alleviate the stress that content is I think, causing right now all across the board, and for people in TV land. So the progress report. So we have done a lot of stuff. The core team, kudos to the people on the core team. This has been a labor of love. As they said, it's been a year. So it looks like, you know, sort of, oh, I was here before and then I went away and then magically some design happened. And that's the way it looks from the outside. But a huge amount of hard work went into this, particularly on the part of your core team. So kudos and thank you to you guys. So we've done a whole bunch of discovery activities to figure out what our strategy is going to do. We architected the navigation, the page structure, the site structure to make sure it was intuitive to somebody who is not on the inside here. We make sure that we did things like user personas so we have an idea of the audiences that we're trying to speak with. We have done the design. We are right now in the middle of that. So most of the important screens have been drafted, and that's why we're showing them for feedback at this time. And the little you are here now is that town hall. after this and after we get your feedback, what we'll be doing is taking the design, tweaking, and then building the actual code, building the site. So HTML, which is the front end, what you see, and then the back end, the CMS stuff. And then there'll be QA and testing just to make sure that the thing that we launch is actually good. Cool? Any questions so far about the progress or anything, stuff that we've done in the past? We good? So how are we going to define success? Sort of important to start out. We have the strategic objectives, so we want to make sure that we're meeting each of those things. But even those things, to some extent, are tactical. I think if we take it at another level, we want to make sure that we make a wow impression. You know, brand is an emotional thing. So if someone comes to the website, we're either going to make a good impression or not a good impression. We're either going to connect with them here or not. It's not actually an intellectual exercise, it's an emotional exercise. So we want to make sure that we're giving people a good impression, something that I don't mean wow, like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before, because we're not Google, right? But I think what we want to do is create a sense of, oh wow, this is a place that I should consider. I'm impressed with this. It needs to be authentic. The other thing about the wow factor is you never want to make it so wow that it's not actually true, right? Because people will know that immediately, right? That comes across. Studies that are done, particularly with millennials, will show that they can look at a stock photo that's been staged and beautifully lighted with fancy makeup, and they can smell it from a mile away. They know when it's not authentic because they've grown up in the digital age. So we're not going to fool them. We need to make sure that the brand is authentic. We want to deepen user engagement, and by that I mean we want users to convert on the site. We want them to do something, right? We want them, particularly perspectives in their families, we want them to apply or get more information, give us their contact information. We want to start developing a relationship with them of some kind. I'm going to skip to the last one. So I used this metaphor when we were in the discovery sessions. I want to think about it as getting a second date, right? So the way I talked about it in the discovery sessions was, if you were going on a first date with someone and they came to pick you up at your house, and they said, hi, my name's Pete, and here's my W-2, and here's my family health history. Here's all the parking tickets I ever had, and here's all the insurance policies I ever. You'd be like, okay, fruitcake, I'm not going on a second date, right? You'd be like, this is so weird and inappropriate. That's sort of what my higher education clients on their websites tend to do. They tell the student and the parents everything they ever need to know till the end of time, right? So I'm still shopping to decide whether I want to go to your school, but you have all the details about how to get a parking sticker, and you'll need to come on a Saturday afternoon, and you need to speak to Mary, and you need to do this, and Mary's not here in 3 o'clock because she goes to lunch. We overwhelm them with painstaking detail, but we haven't gotten a first date. We haven't even gotten through the first date. So I think we want to take a step back and stop trying to do that, right? And start making this more of an introduction to Santa Barbara City College, right? And then realizing that if they give us their contact information, or they ask for more information, or they call us, or they reach out to us, or connect on social media, we can then build a relationship with them where they'll actually become more likely to enroll. Rarely does a website actually completely convince a person all the way through to apply. Oftentimes it takes some human intervention, even if it's a short, but it's high touch, because people aren't buying pencils, right? They're coming here, they're spending a lot of money, making a significant investment in time and in their lives. So it's not a commodity. So we need to treat it as, we're not having them drop a degree in a basket and then check out with their shopping cart, right? Does that make sense? When we talked to students and when we did a survey, right, we gave them some samples of different sites, and they were all different flavors. And this was kind of very clearly the winner in terms of trends. I was glad, because this is actually a site that we did. Not all the ones in there were sites that iFactory did. So, like, how much would that have sucked if they had picked like a site that somebody else had done? This was a site that we did for Central Wyoming Community College, and when it's not really that surprising if you're a millennial who's grown up in the digital age, what you like about this. It's clean, it's very mobile friendly. So when we actually asked what they liked about it and got comments back, it's simple and easy, it looks intuitive, it's direct, so very short statements, not long paragraphs of text. It's scannable, So I can quickly look, I get the sense of the icons. Oh yeah, there's that little hamburger thing, that's the menu, right? There's the search thing, I see that. I see this thing called Watch Rachel's Story, like very clear calls to action. If I do this all the time on my iPhone, I know exactly what to do here. It's well put together. It looks like I'll get my money's worth. So obviously that made a good impression when we asked for feedback. Students thought, oh, if I go to this school, I'll get my money's worth, right? These people have their stuff together and dealing with them won't be a hassle. That last one I put in there in part because a couple of people said it in their comments, and that goes directly in my mind to the service issue that we talked about before. It gives the impression that they will give me good service when I go there, and that's hugely important. The reveal. Ooh, okay. So just quick one, this is just static, right? So I don't want to spend too much time here. This is just a flat picture of the thing. Oh man, I knew it was going to do this. Hold please. Don't look at my password, that's cheating. Bring it home. Okay, it's a little slow to load. That's because this isn't a real website. Don't worry, your real website won't be like this. These are Photoshop files. They're kind of big and clunky. Ooh, cool. So what you get to see is not only have we laid out the screens for desktop, but we've also laid out the screens for tablet and for mobile phone, right? So we do that for all the important screens only because we want to make sure that it looks good on every form factor. And there are trade-offs that you have to make. Sometimes if you have a video, sometimes you replace it with a static image. But the goal with mobile is to make sure that you make as few exceptions as possible so there's a consistently good experience across devices. You only make those trade-offs when you absolutely have to because of things like the video is going to take too much to load and it's going to cost the user a lot in terms of their data plan. So we like to make strategic decisions about things on the mobile phone just to be smart, but to the extent that we can, we try to make the experience consistent across device factors. So there's a number of things that I want to show. So let's just talk about this in general. So I think what we're trying to do here is a couple of things. If I click on this. What I'm trying to do is, obviously, as we talked about before, I mean, this is a gorgeous place. I've been here before, and I still, look from the student center over at, the big cliffs, and it looks like you're in Tuscany, and there's the beach. It looks like you're in Hawaii. I mean, it really is amazingly beautiful. Like, you guys forget how gorgeous it is here. Coming from Boston, where it's now dark and rainy and going to snow anytime, this is spectacular. So this is really beautiful. I mean, it's just such a gorgeous, and it gives you a sense of place. But I think what we want to do quickly is tie that sense of place to a sense of people, right? This isn't just about a physical location. This is about people and an experience that you will have here. People look friendly, people that look happy, right? And then here's their stories. And these are people who actually I'm trying to be able to envision myself at this place. Will I be happy? Do those people look like people I would want to associate with? Do they look like me? Do they look like people I can imagine working with or collaborating with, right? Find your path. This is important, right? So, you guys have, pathways programs. Obviously, that's a big thing across the country now, especially for my community college clients. We see that a lot. The reason I think that's so important is because of the fact that when students are looking for what they're trying to do, A, they don't always know, and B, they don't always know what it's called, right? So the program names are oftentimes not intuitive for people who don't go or work here, right? So what we're trying to do is say, think about the programs that we have, but also you could find a course and there's support and there are ways to succeed given the path that you're trying to take. So it's always in the context of real life. Right? It's always in the context of some kind of outcome, right, to keep them on their path. It's affordable, and what we don't want to do is go into painstaking detail. What we're trying to do is make it scannable and make a good impression about affordability and value, right? What we don't want to say is cheap. What we want to say is good value, right? And outcomes and return on investment. This is showing simply that we are a modern institution, right? You kind of have to have have social media on your site. And it gives a good impression of place. Take the next step. So what we're trying to do is, again, in terms of that second date, we're trying to tell a story, make a good impression that's very high level, then get down to the, here's what we have to offer, always in the context of what you want to do. This is always about your success. It's not really about Santa Barbara City College. This is actually about the user. It's about what SBCC can do for you, right? So it's always about the value to the user. So here's a great place. Here's how we can help you in terms of the pathways. Here's a little bit about what it's like to go here and the kind of people and place this is. You can see on social media and get a real sense of what the discussions are. So again, a sense of place, of community and culture. And then, by the way, here's some really good statistics. Now we're getting more tactical and getting more tangible. And then if you'd like, if you didn't want to explore any of that stuff, here's some really easy and direct next steps. So you could apply or enroll, because we never know what people are going to call it. Students use different terms, so that's a nice, good catchphrase. Visit. That basically says we encourage you to come here. I mean, anybody who sees this campus is going to be impressed, which I know from talking to the admissions folks, too, that when people come to visit, it's more likely that they'll actually apply and come. And then finally, just ask somebody. Just talk to somebody. Again, this is about building relationships. It's not about telling them all the detail of everything they'll need to know to the end of time, right? And then we have a footer that basically says there's more than one campus. Connect with us on social media. We care about accessibility. Here's contact information, the basics. Cool. Show you the open menu. So when people click on the old hamburger menu, here's kind of what they see. Nice large fonts, plain language words, and things that are touchable, right? So there's space between them. So when I'm on a mobile phone, it's not hard to do that, right? I'm not trying to touch two things and the wrong one happens, and right? This is very deliberately laid out to be good on a mobile device. Boom. A search. Boom. Google-like. That's what the model is. People are used to Google. They like Google, especially millennials. So this is nice and plain and simple. The results will be a little fancier, so they'll allow people to filter and sort, which is nice, because if they get 50,000 results and they only want to know programs and courses, it would be nice to filter down the way Amazon does. The hero image. By this, we mean the thing at the top. And what we're trying to say here about the hero image is that what we showed you just says right now Santa Barbara Community College, because it's devoid of content, right? But what we want to show here is that the goal is to have content that is a couple of things. It's big picture and aspirational, right? Because this whole experience is about the user's hopes and dreams. Ultimately, that's what this is about. If we're not addressing those things, we're just selling pencils, right? We're not going to connect with them. We know this from countless studies that have been done about why prospective students decide not only to go to a school, but to go to school or not, especially a community college, because you're not just competing with other schools. As our friends at Central Wyoming said, you're also competing with an 18-wheeler, right? You're competing with actual jobs where they can go out and work as a parking attendant at a Las Vegas casino and make $120,000 their first year out of high school. So there has to be a reason. You've got to reach some hopes and dreams. Can't just be a commodity. So create something new, create yourself, right? This looks like this beautiful, gorgeous setting in which to find yourself, figure out what you want to do, and actually do something really interesting with it. Art, science, whatever it is that you want to do, and here's how you can find out more. So this is always in the context of an image with a message that appeals to their hopes and dreams, and then leads them to do something. It's always about taking an action or converting. Okay? And what you can see here is if I show you the open menu on a mobile phone, it works exactly like you would expect it on a mobile phone if you used a mobile phone all the time. There's nothing surprising about this. Now, it's not exactly the same as on a desktop because it's a much smaller device factor. But if I click on these, they will drop down, right? Which is exactly what you would expect. And it will reveal one level at a time. Ooh, the academics page. Ooh. Something for everyone, no matter what you want to do. We have something for you, no matter what your hopes and dreams are. We have something that is for you. Learning opportunities, it's about opportunity. It's not just about a class. Study abroad, not something people, especially people looking at community colleges, not something they always imagine themselves doing. So this is, again, like hopes and dreams and inspiring them, right? Extended learning, again, always coming back to take the next step. Something really simple and direct and action-oriented. Hello. Show you the program detail page. So what you could do, what the particular degrees are with some quick overviews so I can quickly, again, it's all about scannability. Always ends in a call to action of some kind for the specific program or just in general for some way to contact us. So you can see it's nice, it's pretty consistent. So if a person wants to know how to apply, they're never going to have to think about it. They always know there's that big button, that big bullet that's touchable on a mobile phone down at the bottom. They always know where to go, right? And people who do this all day learn those conventions very quickly. So that's good. If you're consistent, users will get it really quickly, especially millennials. Not only millennials, but especially. So, your thoughts. So I think, Luce, did you... We've got those handouts. Nice. Everybody has them? Cool. So this is kind of what I'd like people to think about. I'm going to, if you don't mind, maybe give you a couple minutes at the end to actually, or feel free to fill these out now if you want. I think the most important things for the visual design at this point are, does it feel like this place? Does it actually tell a good story of who this place is and who we are as people, right? Do you get a sense of place? Does it help people connect? Does it feel true? Does it make a good competitive impression? Again, it's a competitive marketplace. You need to make a good impression in comparison to not only the other schools in the area, but other schools in general. Does it seem easy to use and accessible? Usability is huge, especially for a community college where there's oftentimes a huge fear factor, particularly for audiences that are not primary English speakers. There's an enormous fear factor of not wanting to seem stupid. Oftentimes the feedback that we will get about a website is not that the website is too busy. I looked at it and it felt overwhelming to me and I felt too stupid, right? So oftentimes, especially the non-English speakers, will go to a website and they never actually blame the site. They turn it back on themselves and it makes them feel bad about themselves and it makes them feel afraid, so they leave the site. We hear this time after time, and we've seen it in survey after survey. So it needs to seem easy to use and accessible. And I mean that beyond the WCAG accessibility, right? Accessible meaning available to everybody. Equal opportunity. Does it look good on mobile? It needs to. Because the mobile phone, regardless of your socioeconomic bracket or the language that you speak, this is almost a universal now. We see this across all of our community colleges, right? This is the thing that almost everybody has in some form. Does it seem modern, clean, and fresh? It should. We don't want to have spent all this money and have it look like we did it 10 years ago. That would be bad. I think we can all agree. Thoughts, especially with respect to these questions. Thoughts, or questions for that matter? Do people think, for the first one, does it actually feel like you guys? Show of hands. Show of hands. People would say it does seem like you guys. It does feel like you guys. Okay. People that think it doesn't. Like it distinctly does not feel like you. Okay. So nobody thinks it distinctly doesn't feel like. Okay. So that's good. Good competitive impression. Hands. Good, okay, so majority, so that's good. Okay. Easy to use and accessible, based on first impression. I mean, again, we haven't done any testing yet. Okay. Looks good on mobile. Okay, pretty consistent, so this is good. Clean, modern, fresh. Boom. Okay, Good. All right. So that's pretty good. Questions that you guys have? Anything in particular? I'm going to bring, you know what? I'm not going to make people go up there. I'm going to bring the mic to you. Why? That's just who I am.
In a previous session, you all, no, I haven't been. You presented a couple foils, what the new site should do and what the site should not do. And having arrived just late, I can only rely on this material. But I'm concerned that if someone goes to www.sbcc.edu, that this is what they're going to see. This is only a very small part because you're aiming at prospective students and anyone who wants to find a faculty member's name. How are they going to find it? New student recruiting should not be the major topic of the highest level webpage.
Okay, that's interesting. So new recruitment you don't think is the actual #1 goal of the public website? What does the core team think? Because that was our strategy. That was the approved strategy when we talked to the executive team. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I would agree. So a couple of things. So let's make sure that first we know that when we look at the actual design, I'll let you grab that one. When we look at the actual design, so if someone wants to find out, someone wants to find out the faculty member's name, let me go back to that. And let me actually show you how I would answer that question. Boop. There's a search. So that's the first thing, which is, by the way, how about 50% of users will default. I mean, you may not, but about 50% of users, according to usability testing, will default to clicking on search immediately.
But it's also on the open menu.
And it's on the open menu. So let me show you that too.
Our faculty under academics.
Right there.
So what I'll add is I really appreciate the feedback. So what we're seeing right now is not the entire site. It's not every page or every section of the website. This is just the high-level homepage view. There will absolutely still be a way with one click to get to faculty, and that section could really be fleshed out. I know that right now there's a lot of great faculty resources that are on our website. There's no intention to get rid of that or hide it. It's just we're reorganizing it a little bit. We did a lot of testing with or feedback and what's the word I'm looking for? Stakeholder interviews or focus groups, thank you, with faculty and with student services, with classified staff, with lots of different staff, and with a lot of students. And we did overwhelmingly hear, particularly from students and from staff who work a great deal with the website, that these are the most important things. They are using the website primarily to provide information to students who are interested in applying and enrolling. We have a lot of community members that come to the college for events or to do things on campus, and they want an easy way to find that information. So there will absolutely still be a faculty presence, even accessible from the homepage, but this is an external facing website, and that is the main purpose, is to present our story and who we are to potential students.
To prospective customers.
And to alumni and to, our neighborhood.
Sure, all external audiences,
yeah.
Really. I mean, in some sense, the story that you tell, it's irrespective of the external audience. It's either telling a good, compelling story to people that don't know us or it's not. Some of the details about, if I'm a prospective student, I might want to know different things than a community member. There's another question, but I want to make sure that you don't look convinced, not remotely. Which is okay.
Thank you. What I don't have is the context of where these columns or these classifications appear. Are they on the very first thing that someone sees?
So that's a great question. So this is when I'm at the home page and I've tapped on the menu, which is the standard for mobile devices now. You don't see the menu now because it takes up too much room on a mobile device. So if I showed the menu, that would basically take up everything. I would have no content on the homepage. Yeah, which is okay. Yeah. And that's all you would show, is just the menu. I actually don't know how you do that on this and do it well. Because there's not that much room here. But I know what you're saying, like you want to make it quickly accessible. I think if we remember how people use mobile devices, in particular when we see usability studies, people have no problem clicking on the hamburger. They know exactly what to do. That's just become a convention. Yeah, you're not seeing it. They don't see it? Yeah. No. Fair. Okay. So let's, if we could, I'm going to ask you to hold that because that's important, right? I want to come back to that, and thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm going to come over here with the mic.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I both teach and I also run the gallery on campus. And I think, I know you're talking about kind of easy user, kind of back end, you know, but that definitely is my top concern. I currently operate the gallery website using Weebly because it's easy yeah. And what we have isn't. And I'm well aware that like what I'm doing isn't kind of consistent, but it's better than my other options. And then so there's kind of, I have a huge kind of desire that it, you know, kind of back end easy use. And then I also, like when I look at this as someone who provides free, you know, content to our community, I don't see here, you can, like, I only see here, you can sign up for classes, which we know requires money and applying, but they could actually show up today to go to the gallery. And there's lots of other things on campus where they could just show up. Resources. And that it's also, I think, something that's so, it's part of what you know, of course, how I understand the mission of the work that I do, but I think it's one of the things, you know, as an institution, we've really been working to rebuild our relationship with our local community. And so if we can make it obvious right away that you can come today and experience this with, like, you can just walk on campus and be there. And I don't see that in this menu.
That's great. Thank you. That's awesome. So, so I'm so happy that you actually talked about that. So a couple of things. That image at the top is actually potentially a gallery. So it can actually show more than one thing. I don't know if that's obvious, but there's 3 dots here. For that reason, I think because we know what we're trying to do is simplify but not oversimplify, and that's a tricky balancing act in terms of making it usable. I know just because we do usability testing all the time. But I think what's hard to see here is that we've put forth very specific neutral content that's way oversimplified. In reality, I think the content itself can actually do things like focus on the fact that there are free resources available to everybody in the community, right? I think there's still going to be at some level probably a primary focus on enrollment, but it's not exclusively that. The homepage has a long scrolling kind of resource to be able to tell the kind of stories that you're talking about, I think. Yeah, Sarah, please. Yes, I would agree with you. I would agree with you, absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. Sarah's point was for the people in TV land, because she didn't have a mic, was that the free resources are oftentimes a path to enrollment. They're oftentimes a conversion mechanism. I completely agree. Yeah, so just bear in mind that we arbitrarily selected some content to be neutral, but that also means it's not true and it's not compelling because it's fake, right? It's placeholder stuff. But I would absolutely agree with you. Other questions? Or comments or thoughts, anything? Yeah. A lot of pages for departments, clubs, and committees. Great. That's an awesome question. So we have all these clubs and committees and stuff. Are they all going to follow the template? So one thing that's hard to see from here is that there are a bunch of templates. So two things. A, there are a bunch of templates for different kinds of pages. But there is also, which is way down here at the bottom, what we refer to as a pattern page. So that basically we create as a kit of modules that are flexible, can be moved in, moved out, so that if I have a kind of page that I don't really like any of those templates, it just doesn't suit my content, I can actually create a page using all those widgets. So I have a full toolkit. The templates are basically, I think, probably going to help in 90% of the cases. But I think there are going to be some pages where no template we could have planned is going to suit. My guess is for the clubs and organizations, just on past clients, probably something like the program page, some modified version of the program page with some of the additional widgets, I think will probably work for most of the clubs and organizations. That's my guess. Yeah. Cool. Good. Sarah, please. No, oh, no, 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 no. Oh my God, that's a great question. No, oh my God, no, I don't want to horrify people with the idea that they're stuck with migration and no help. That would rot. Nice, take it, Jen. Run. Ooh, I shouldn't do that. I'm gonna get feedback.
I'll come over. Hi. So for migration to the new website design, I'm Jennifer. Hi, Sarah. For migration to the new website design, we're going to handle it in a couple of different ways. For the majority of our website, we're going to handle it automatically. So whatever content you have on your website right now is going to be converted to the new design. And then you can sort of take that new design and modify it however you need to. So for most cases, the users aren't going to be responsible for migrating it from one design to the next. It'll just sort of appear there. In some cases, and this is where the core committee has spent some time identifying specific areas of the website that we want to work on, like say student services or really service-oriented pages like that. We're going to be spending some time actually sitting down with those departments and taking what may be an older website design or something like that and actually helping them convert it to a new format. So for, like I said, so most cases, it'll just be handled and then you can sort of take over the design and work on it yourself. But for people that may want extra help or that we kind of identified that will need extra help for the department, we'll be meeting with them to help them through that process. Does that answer it for you? Well, what else can I tell you?
The fear of content is so real. Like any questions or anything you want to?
Right.
Because you're on Weebly. Yeah. Yeah. But let's plan if it's I mean unless you have other thoughts, but in particular because she's on a different platform, why don't we, if it's okay with you, let's hang after for a few minutes and let's actually talk about the Weebly issue. Is that okay with you? Because I want to make sure we take care of that because that's important. Yeah, of course.
So our library website's been off of the primary platform for, well, since I moved it off the primary platform 13 years ago. Partially because it didn't function well enough within the platform and I didn't find it as attractive as it could have been. So one of my goals with ours, and I hope with other sites that are not in our primary environment, is to move our site into the primary environment. And this platform that we're working on includes enough flexibility in terms of images, image size, placement, fonts, menus, and so forth that I hope that I can be able to do that. Now, I'll have to have help from Jennifer probably to do that, but in general, I'd like to be able to, because ideally we would have a common experience for all of our users. And I just got an email from a department who was actually featured on the screen here a few minutes ago because they're building a separate site right now. And I've suggested that they hold off and say, let's see if we can get it to work within this framework because of what the needs are. And the needs were primarily, for us in the library, was really about being able to quickly, easily manage, and also to have some blog type functionality, which was something that we hope to have in this as well. And so, and then we run into the main issue with the third-party websites is the accessibility issues around we can't conform or test them as easily as we can on the internal sites, and we have a legal responsibility to make all of our content fully accessible. And so I think that my big encouragement and my voice from this committee would be to encourage all of our external sites to move into this platform. And since I have the microphone, I'm going to say another thing, and which is—
Are you going to sing the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, I'm a kneeler. We're not going to get political here, are we?
I'm not even taking that bait.
So I just got back from a conference where a couple of students presented, and they, in 3 sessions, they all said the same thing. Our first point of contact with any institution is the website. And if the website isn't a modern, functional website that if it doesn't work and function like the rest of the internet, like our current website does, not function like the rest of the internet, we're gone, you know? And it just, so we've had, what, a 35% drop in enrollment in the last 5 years? And I think that it is directly linked to our website, in my opinion, because our website right now is awful, and it needs to be changed, so. It is.
You know what?
It's not what we would expect from the internet in 2017.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's my personal opinion.
You know what, though? Even beyond, agreed. Yeah, and even beyond personal opinion, though, actually. So when they have done, again, Noel Levitz does these huge national surveys of graduates, undergraduates, their parents, et cetera. Very clear data. If they don't get an experience that they expect or approve of, 40% of them, right in a line with what you're seeing in the drop, 40% of them will drop the school from its short list. Let me tell you, there's no other business in the world outside of higher ed that would allow 1/3 to almost 1/2 of its clients go and think that was okay, right? I don't know how you could sustain an organization where you're losing 40% of your clients. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Forget higher ed, any organization, right? So clearly, I think what you guys are seeing is right in alignment with what we're seeing at a national level. People don't have a good experience with the website. They drop the school from their short list. Period. Please. Not only the website. Phone calls. Yes. 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 Yep. So beautifully said. Beautifully said. And we talked about this during Discovery, right? What we're trying to do is think of the website as a big FAQ. It's a question that people are asking all the time, and it's a relatively straightforward question. Where is the application? What is the deadline for, right? If people are asking, okay, well, I'm a foreign national, English is my first language, and I know I need financial aid, but I know I can't get it, but I'm concerned about transportation and this, and do I need a visa? Their questions are really complicated. That needs a person. No website is ever going to do a good job of answering a question like that. So the goal is the 90% of questions that are frequently asked, let the website do a good job of answering those very straightforward questions, because 10% of the calls are going to come in and be complicated, and those need a person. So right now, we're trying to make the website be all things to all people, and it's doing a really bad job of it. Because websites are not good at parsing things that require human judgment. They're just not. They're not by their nature, right? I can go to the IRS site and say, okay, I just need to know, can I use the short form or the long form? There's a pretty simple answer. If you're taking deductions, you make this much, you could use this form. Straightforward. But if I say, oh, well, I have an irrevocable trust and I bought some realty from last year, now what form should I use? You're not going to get that from the IRS. You need to talk to somebody because it's a complicated question, right? So we don't want to fool ourselves into thinking that the website is going to supplement people. What we don't want to do is say, oh, don't call us, right? That's not the point. What we want is the calls where somebody really needs to talk to a human. Let those calls come to us because the website is doing such a good job of answering the 90% that are FAQs. I mean, they're frequently asked for a reason, right? Does that make sense? We don't want to have nobody answering the phone. That's horrible. This is relationship building. They're not buying a pencil. It's like we talked about before. They're buying a relatively expensive proposition where they have to put time and money and in some cases really put their lives on hold, right? Their families, their jobs. It's a real hassle for some people. Cool? Back to the accessibility issue. That's the other thing I think really well said about a common platform. What it gives you the ability to do is have consistency, and in particular, most of the modern content management systems, particularly the one that you guys have chosen, has tools built in for accessibility evaluation and things like search engine optimization. There's all kinds of tools built into the suite. And just so you know, it is really the best. You guys bought basically the best tool on the market. It really is. We have lots of clients working with it, and they're almost universally very happy with it. Now, is it Weebly or Wix? No, it's not. But part of it is you don't manage an enterprise site on a Weebly or a Wix because it doesn't serve the needs of a complex institution. So it's a trade-off. But I think what we've tried to do with our templates and the way we're hoping the content management system will be set up and the migration help is to keep it relatively simple to do basic edits. And I think it is. Just in case, Sarah. I'm trying really hard. Because that is a huge concern. If it's really complicated to use, people are going to avoid it and go around it. Question?
I'm not sure what the legal requirements are, but what about Spanish and visually impaired and all that?
Good. Yeah. Great question. So, so in terms of the accessibility, so let me take the accessibility, the ADA 508 accessibility piece first. It's very complicated. It's gotten really complicated. So what we build our code to and what we help you guys, at least out of the gate with, is making sure that we're a WCAG 2.0 AA compliant, which is kind of the gold standard. It's not the highest level, but it's considered the gold standard. The highest level is so hard to reach that it's like trying to reach perfection almost. So almost no organization actually reaches it ever. But it's the blue sky. So I think there are a number of things in the code, in the colors that we've chosen, the size of the fonts. A lot of things that make a site usable actually also make it accessible. There are things that we do to test it so that, for example, for a screen reader, so we do a lot of work with accessibility. We've actually built sites for the Helen Keller Services in New York and for the Perkins School for the Blind, and we've done usability testing with them, with even deafblind students. So we have a pretty good amount of experience. So I think you guys will need to talk about maintaining going forward, because building it is one thing, maintaining the content in an accessible way is actually, it's a labor. It can be done, you just need a good plan to do it. So we'll talk with you guys about that. The language issue, almost all of our clients are defaulting, I think based on cost alone, are defaulting to using Google Translate. Now, that said, we have had some clients, and you feel free to jump in this, we have had some clients specifically translate like a letter from the dean or something, very particular pieces of content to go through a filter of like cultural sensitivity. Doing it for all your content is really a prohibitively expensive thing to do. But you can do some small amounts of localized content and do things like check the navigation.
Yeah, but thank you for that question, because that has
It's a great
come up, and I think for this phase of this project, we really prioritize the things that Pete has talked about, you know, design, mobile accessibility, being accessible. But we have looked at examples of other colleges, and they've done unique things to address Spanish and even other languages, where it is maybe identifying what's the content that really would be most helpful to be available in Spanish rather than trying to do the entire website. So I absolutely envision that that's something that we're going to keep talking about and figure out a good solution. Because I mean, I'm bilingual. I know that Google Translate does not get the job done. And
Gets the gist of it, but it doesn't do a good job.
yeah,
of getting
and
meaning.
we know that our students and, you know, their families, they deserve a really, you know, easy way to get the information if they are Spanish speakers. So that's something I think we're going to keep working on. So thank you for bringing it up, and other people have brought it up as well.
The good thing is the content management system that you've bought can actually maintain dual sets of content like that, dual language. So that's pretty sweet when you guys do decide to do actual true translations. It's actually pretty good at managing versions. Thanks for that. Any other questions? Concerns? Haikus that you wrote? Come on over. Come on down.
Well, I'd like to thank you and the committee. I think you've done some, great foundational work. I think the modernizing the navigation is critical, and I see that. I also think that to focus more on the outward-facing website. I think prospective students. I also think communities up there. I think we need to work on those. But I think the decline of most websites have been that they were trying to do 1,000 different things. And they tried to become the intranet site, the extranet site. And, I think today we can't do that anymore. We really got to, focus on what the key elements need to be, prospective students, community, moms, things like that. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh God, you're so welcome. And kudos to the core team. A couple of things to add on to that. The audiences that we're talking about for the internal audiences, they're not served well by a public site either, right? Because current students, for example, have to go through all this marketing and sales material, quote unquote, before they get to the stuff that they want, which is how do I register for a class? How do I make a payment? How do I check email? How do I get in touch with my academic counselor, right? They're very task oriented, as are staff and faculty generally. When I do faculty focus groups, I get the same 8 to 10 responses in terms of how faculty actually use the website almost every single focus group that I've done, and I've probably done hundreds of faculty focus groups. I want to get to the directory. I want to be able to post my grades. I want to be able to upload a course curriculum, right? I want to be able to check the academic calendar. There's probably 8 to 10 things that faculty regularly want to do. And so they're not served well by a thing that's trying to convince you to come here. It's just not. The purpose is so different. And the proof in the pudding, I think, is you wouldn't go to Amazon and expect them to have their personnel files and their employee handbook on the site when you are searching for products. You would actually think that was horrifying. And we actually get that response from students and parents when they're like, I saw this thing, the warning about H1N1. That was an internal memo. Whoops. That wasn't a great selling point. So we've actually had a number of students and parents say, wow, this inside baseball stuff, I don't know why you're showing me all your forms and your painstaking detail about how you run the school. I don't really care. I'm trying to get my kid enrolled and trying to figure out how to pay. And I want to talk to somebody. You're making that very hard. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Please. Super good question.
Yeah, pipeline is not changing at all. There's an icon on the homepage with it has the P, so we'll make it really easy for students to know where that pipeline button is. I recall in one of the student focus group, that was one of the questions was, you know, where's pipeline? And we know that it's right there on the homepage, and they didn't see it because there's so much on the homepage that it's all overwhelming, and they're just like, I don't know where it is. So we need to make it really clear and easy for them to get there. But in terms of like the interface with pipeline, that's not changing as part of this project at all.
Related question.
Of course.
Pipeline has a search line. The search line in Pipeline does not search the main SBCC site. It seems to me that that would be a requirement that you could use an index for Pipeline Group that has the full depth of your site.
So it would be a federated comprehensive search. That's something you guys can look into. I don't know if Pipeline has the ability to do that. But something I think it's worth,
We'll
we
talk
think
about
about it.
it,
With that, I think we're totally worthy suggestion. Thanks. I would agree. A federated search is a good thing to think about. But we're at time. Folks, thank you so much for coming and staying. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks to the core team. Sheets.